I'm McKenzie from BFBS Radio. I caught up with England rugby legend Jonny Wilkinson. This chat's deep and explores the subject of mental health. If you or anyone you know is struggling with mental health, then help is available. Check out bfbs.com/mental health. Jonny, great to see you. I'd first of all, as a Scot, speaking to an Englishman who has created one of the most iconic moments in sport, even as a Scot, I can appreciate the beauty of that. I mean, it took me a couple of years to adjust to it, but have you ever gone through a conversation since 2003 when that hasn't come up?
It's funny, yeah, it's provided an interesting backdrop to many parts of my life. It was kind of the dream and the vision for many parts, and now it's very much the backdrop that props everything up, and it kind of pervades a lot of my experience in life. And it's been an interesting moment to I guess to relate to, and how that has shaped my life a little bit. It's really, really an interesting topic, but the more I move away from it, the more I come to understand when I look back on it, it wasn't something you said, it's something you created. It's like, yes, to a degree, but it was largely something that just came through me. It was something that I was there to experience, and so I don't take a huge amount of credit for it. And so when we have conversations about it, I'm quite playful with it, and I'm quite sort of in awe of how these things can happen. They can just unfold, and in a quite humble way, it was like, that was an interesting moment, but it doesn't play so much of a big part in my life now.
I was going to ask you that. You achieved an awful lot in your career, over 90 caps for your country, British Lion caps as well. Wikipedia, and I have to agree with Wikipedia, says that you are one of the greatest players to have played the game. You are a humble guy, though, and I'm not going to embarrass you anymore by going on about that. Breaking down that moment, because that's what it was. That's what moment in 2003, and the ball arrives. Have you got any doubt whatsoever as to what's going to happen next?
There's an interesting sort of experience there for me, because I've funded a lot of my career up to that point through or with doubt. That was kind of my driving force, was basically this understanding that everything was going to go to pot unless I controlled it. And that energy, that fierce need to know everything and cover every base and turn over every stone in preparation, that was where I derived my confidence. And yet on the field, in the middle of the action, it was a very different kind of relationship with life I had. I didn't have that doubt, but I didn't have a mind-based version of, I'm really confident it'll all work out either. There was just an engagement in what I was doing, absolutely whole. And I think that's where the control comes from, is that I was fully present. All my faculties were there. I was alert. I was sensitive to what was happening, and I was willing to just fully involve myself in it. And I think a lot of the doubt is where I've been doing my kicking whilst thinking the whole time about what might happen, what's this. But when you're in the middle of it, when you live in the now, there's no consequence, so you can't have doubt. When you live in the now, there is no consequence, so you can't have that sort of, I don't know, that kind of absence, that need to try and work things out. You just do it. And that moment for me was the ultimate just do it. And so much so that I don't even remember doing it. I just remember watching it happen whilst my body moved.
We've seen it so many times. You must have watched it a few times since as well. How much sports psychology was there around the time? Because you hear now the people that have excelled in their field, whether they're golfers, footballers, rugby players, they talk about the sports psychology, the mental agility that you need to have as well, and resilience that you need to have, and focus.
Yeah, definitely. But I think I agree. And at the time, there wasn't as much, definitely, as there is now. And I think, as with all things in life, it tends to sort of move in a direction of becoming a bit more advanced, a bit more sort of intricately and subtly understanding of everything. So that's good. But I think, to be honest, a lot of that drive and a lot of that is within people anyway. It's it's very difficult to construct that and suddenly say, right, go there and want this if you don't already want it. And I think finding that within you is a real privilege. And I had that massively, that drive and that focus. The issue, I think, has been, for me, was always about, could I relax with it? Could I work with it instead of fight it? And could I, because the classic thing is you have that drive and you get that nervous feeling that comes up in your stomach, and automatically that drive and that nervous feeling can connect in a way that's not helpful. You start to view that as a threat, that you need to sort out. And when you've got that drive and that need to achieve, you then go into overdrive when it comes to trying to sort out that problem. But it's often worth asking, is there really a problem? Because that nervous feeling for me was just what I came to realize was just an added strength and my body readying itself for what it knew for me was important. But I kind of got in the way of that a lot. And sports psychology, I think, really helps you to get out of the way. And all psychology does, to get out of the way and come to a space of trusting and allowing. And it's in the not trying to control that you kind of find a lot of your influence and control and your performance too.
This might seem a daft question, but actually, given everything you've said there, did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy the experience of playing at that level?
It depends on your definition of enjoyment. I think it's a bit like joy. For one point, people were saying you really need to go and enjoy your rugby. So I went out there and tried to laugh on the field and smile, and I hated it. I realized that my enjoyment was already taking place, and it comes back to that thing about just being deeply involved and present. That's joy. And I think for me, yes, in which case I enjoyed a lot of it. The problem became when, that kind of build up, which I didn't enjoy so much because I didn't really allow myself to be present when you're leading up to a game. You're too busy thinking about what if, and after the game, you're too busy thinking about what if in the other sense, the regretting sense. But in the game itself was my release. The problem was a bit later on was that I started to lose some of the game because I was in my mind during that game as well, running around thinking, how's it going? What am I doing? What have I done wrong? What's going to go next? And a lot of that can just, for me, was about sort of thinking I was becoming someone special. And that kind of, again, interesting illusion meant that I was running around trying not to lose something I thought I had, instead of that younger experience where you go out there and you just go, well, I'm just out here giving it a go. Whereas later on it was, I'm someone special and I can't afford to lose this. And, this must happen this way for me. And so, that humbling experience, and life kind of humbled me a lot by making sure I understood that I was not special. And eventually I got the message, I think.
But as we said earlier on, what you've achieved, not many people will ever do that. And that, by definition, makes you special in your field, on the field, if you pardon the pun, as well, with what you've done. It didn't come without a cost, though, and it's well documented, your mental health struggles. Do you remember the first time you thought, I might have a problem here? And as a follow-up to that, can I talk about it? And who do I talk to about it, and when?
I recognise throughout my youth, I sort of struggled with lots and lots of things, because my main, as I mentioned before, my driving force was fear. I had a big fear of something in my life which I didn't understand. And as a result, I constructed myself in a way to deal with that. But it was an anti-life movement, that construction. And therefore, I just kept finding myself at moments of impasse, kind of standoffs with life, where I got stuck because how I thought things had to be couldn't be. That perfectionism, that need. And so, I investigated that as much as I could. But really, in terms of the mental health thing, for me, it was ultimately just that relationship with I guess, being able to become, I guess, humbled and courageous enough to face what was my issue and not run away from it. And it still is my issue, now it comes up, but I find my relationship with that challenge is so different now, and that I understand with that challenge, it's a movement with life, and it's also a collaboration with this universe around me to find out what's really possible. And there's no better journey than that. The one of fighting it in order to become special is great, but there's a cost to pay for that for everyone. And everyone knows it. It's that thing about, I'm going to get there. You get to the destination. If you're successful enough and you get there, you realize oh gosh, you know, I've put a lot into this and it's not here. If you're not successful enough, it's always that feeling of, oh, I never made it. If you get it and lose it, it's the same pain. But the same remains is the fact that whatever has been doesn't have to determine what can be. And by really holding on to what's been, it just keeps you in the past and out of the now. And for me, the whole point of playing rugby and all that kind of stuff was that it was my passion, and it led me to experiencing the now. And what I've done is swap that out for some stuff, you know, whether it was victories, whether it was identity, whether it was reputation, whether it was, you know, the plaudits from supporters or for that feeling of being important. It's like, but letting that go brings you to the now. And that's where I feel really important in my life, when I'm not someone special and I'm just being. But, you know, we all get identified a bit with what we're doing, and it's important because we all have roles to play. But yeah, crikey, that's the big message to me that's been my challenge the whole time, has been being guided back to realizing that, you know, this struggle is an opportunity to find something very, very powerful. And, you know, and that feels a privilege, and I'll follow it as far as I possibly can.
Can I ask you how much of it is still a struggle now for you in 2024?
Yeah, all the time I recognize lots and lots of familiar patterns coming up in me, whether it be over things, you know, I do a podcast now, which is very much aligned with this kind of exploration. And, you know, I might get caught just trying to make that something. You know, I have a foundation, I do other things, I've got business things, but you get caught just thinking that, you know, getting caught in that urgency, I've got to do this because it's going to do this and it's going to do this. And I end up, all I want to do is bring my full self to it. And I end up doing the opposite. But saying that, also on top of that, when I've mentioned the familiar old patterns, they can really spring up. You know, a couple of years ago, I had one that just came out the blue, and suddenly, you know, you're back there in deep distress, not knowing who you are, not knowing anything. You can't even make your way through the next minute. You're sort of shivering and wondering what the hell's going on, and you just panic and all this, and it comes up. But again, the same as the idea of looking back at me kicking the drop goal, there's something bigger about that. It's not about me saying, look at me compared to everyone else and look at what I've done. It's like, that's such a small picture, but the whole picture about struggle as well is the same relationship, to say, I have a degree of reverence for it, to understand that, yeah, this is an evolutionary, I guess, journey, and it's an evolutionary step that's taking place right now. And it always leads me to a greater, more expansive experience of life, more joyful. But at the time, you know, it's and I really, really compassionately feel for people that are struggling in this kind of space, because I think it's so difficult. You can feel so much like you're not important, and all these other people having these great apparent lives, and the world celebrates these people, but it's the people that are struggling who really hold the secret right now. Because when you take that darkness, that contraction, and you face it, you do that for yourself, but you do it for mankind and everyone else on this planet. And it's part of the shift towards, you know, the loving, connected space. And individuals that are struggling are so, so important. And anything we can do to get around them and simply be there for them, to let them know that it's okay, and that, you know, we'll support them, whatever happens. And that not just that, but every moment they're going through is a transformational sort of moment of incredible power for us all.
Do you think that people view you differently now when you're speaking to them, and you're talking about your mental health, or they know you know, the challenges and the struggles that you face?
Do you know what? I think it's in this space, I don't think it becomes about how you're viewed. I think it's how you're felt. Because I think when you, whatever it is that's going on within you, it kind of has an energetic presence. And I think we can all feel this, you know, when you meet certain people in certain environments, you get a sense of something. And there are people that you meet who you get a sense of, I'm okay around you.
Yeah.
And that energetic thing for me has become the secret of everything. It was a secret of performance. You know, whatever you want on the outside, you have to match it energetically on the inside. And you can do that, you know, through all the physical means of training, and that's important, through the mental means of aligning, visualization, all that stuff, the emotional needs of coming to the peace, composure, and the calm, but also the excitement and the focus, all that stuff it's all part of that energetic thing. But when you find that balance of wholeness within you, in that energy, you are open, you are allowing, you are not in that judgmental space, compassionate, caring, you recognize that there is no separation between me and you. No one's better, no one's worse, that inferior stuff. We're all here. There's just an energy about that which allows people to feel immediately like, let's talk. And I base my life on having deep discussions and sharing, because I sort of feel, well, what else are we going to do? Why else are we here? You know, there's only so much we can talk about in terms of who's driving what car, or, you know, who saw what on TV. It's great. But if we get to that depth and you start to exchange on an energetic level, it's just, it blows the mind. And suddenly, you know, every day is an opportunity. Every interaction is a possibility, and just being alive is enough.
You're right, and finding that opportunity to talk about it, finding the right person, the right moment, it can be quite a challenge for people as well. And there's various techniques that people use. For example, how are you? I'm fine, thanks, because that's how everybody says that. I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I'm good. But how are you really is the follow-up question to that. And that's when you know that somebody's got a time and has possibly got that sixth sense that things aren't right for you.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I sort of, I think it's really powerful, the idea about opening up and sharing and being able to talk, because I think it's that first step of the opening up, which is that massively courageous move, because it goes against every instinct in your body at that time. But when you do it, it's a massive start of that shift. And after that, more openings can take place. And suddenly it's, you know, it's just for me, it's been a wow journey. But I can't help but keep going back to the fact that it's so much to do with the environment created around you that allows you to open up. And when you're struggling, it's upon other people who maybe aren't struggling so much to create that environment. And it is a good starting point to read things and understand what you can do and what you can say. But like anything in business, you know, if you have someone in business shouting, "Don't panic," it's not the same as someone who
If it's the captain of the plane, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If you have the someone that energetically represents truthfully, transparently, honestly, deeply what it is they're saying, then things happen. I think that's the part, as we all say, well, what do we say and what's the right thing to say? It's like, but I think for me, the understanding has been, you've got to go on your own journey. You've got to come to that, you know, you've got to open up where you're closed and have the courage to go where you're closed, even if these feel like smaller things compared to what someone else might be going through. It's like, because when you stand there and say, I'm listening and I'm here for you, is it true? Are you really there for them? Or are you there because you think it's your duty and you should be there to help? Or do you actually 100% want to be there in attention, energy, and presence? And this is where we can all help each other, and we're all on the same path, I think.
We're delighted to have you as the Defence Mental Health and Wellbeing Network Ambassador. How important was that to you?
It's massive. You know, I recognise from my time in what is a contact sport, and a sport that really challenges you to go to a vulnerable space, and especially a sport where you rely so much on the person next to you, and you play that role of realising, geez, you know, I need to do this in order that I help this person, and you know, and the opposition are coming at you, and there's this kind of stuff happening. And I've always been ridiculously humbled in the change room beforehand, just by thinking, what must it be like to be doing this in a military setup? It was something that was very interesting to me as a young kid. I was very excited by all things to do with the military. For some reason, that was a real leaning for me, and it was that and kind of sport. And I guess sport kind of took me on that journey. But when you think about what people are going through, and that's the training, the precision, the ruthless nature of the understandings and all that, it's so important. And people, like you said, pay that price for us, because it's not the price just of going out there and putting your life on the line. It's the price of becoming so trained and conditioned to perform that important role, that it can really challenge where you are when you come back, and how you fit in, and how do you relax when your life is about that. I mean, it's bad enough being a rugby player. I didn't relax during the week ever, and I'm playing a game where it's about trophies. And so the respect I have is just utmost. There is no more I could have, and therefore it's an honor. It's also even humbling to think that my messaging, it should be the guys in that space who are doing the talking. But if I'm some sort of lower level kind of ambassador for it, then I'll more than happily open up and share what I can.
Well, we're delighted to, as I say, that you're able to do that, Rowan. It is hugely appreciated. A couple of quick questions for you from both ends of the scale. So Andre is the welfare officer at Three Rifles. He says, ask him, I'm 42 years old. When is the right time to stop? I've tried and I just can't give up playing rugby.
It's a really good one. I mean, geez, I don't know for anyone what the right thing to do is, but it's intuitive, it's instinctive, and I've always come to this space of trying not to play God on things, and sort of say, oh, I think I should do this. And if you're in the space of thinking about it, it might be a sign that the moment's coming, but it doesn't mean it's now. It just is that sign that says, if I'm starting to have these kind of thoughts, maybe that's coming. But for me, it's always been a case of, I'm going to just keep following my passion until I know. And for me in my rugby career, I just knew, there was a time I was following it and I just got that sense of like, there's something more telling me that I can't do this another year. And that was that. But, I think that's the thing, the mind, if you make a choice through the mind, you'll just regret it through the mind. But if you make it because it comes to your heart and you're just like, oh, I think that might be enough. But good for you playing at 42. Geez.
Yeah.
That makes me give it the call. That's incredible.
Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. My nephew, Finlay Scott, is in P4, plays mini rugby for Musselburgh. They're knocking everything out of their way. They're winning out everything going. What advice have you got for the youngsters at that stage? Because it's such an exciting time for them. There's so many different routes that can go down. But for the likes of Finlay, what would you say to them?
I'd say that, I mean, it's interesting that the fact is that you look at anyone that's been rightly, for me, kind of revered in sport, it's come as a process of learning, not as a process of winning. And most of that learning takes place when you don't win, when things don't go your way. Those are the times when really you want to come alive. Not necessarily that, the learning doesn't place when you're walking around with a trophy and everyone's clapping. That's what reinforcing is called. The learning comes to when you've got to face those moments where it hasn't gone your way. And also in those moments of learning, the learning's done very quickly in the way you feel. You don't have to hammer it home with your mind. Oh, why did I do that? Immediately. I miss a kick, and I kick a lot still. If I miss a kick, I know exactly that I've missed it and what I need to do next as soon as I've hit it. And you can trust that. So I think this sort of sense of like, relax when things don't go your way, but understand this is the most key time. It's not a wrong turn in the path. It is the path. The key is you bring your passion, you bring your excitement when you're ready, you relax until that excitement and passion's there and you follow it. Follow excitement and passion. Understand if you're going to do that, you're going to face challenge. And if you're willing to face that challenge, you're going to end up somewhere beautifully special. And winning doesn't bring the challenge. It's the disappointments that do. So find your opportunity, keep bringing your passion, relax and trust when things don't go your way, and really provide that support for each other as a team, not just as an individual.